Welcome back to Toffee Booze, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing a starting 11 show for West Ham versus Everton on Saturday at 3 o'clock. So let's get straight into it. Obviously, a disappointing result last weekend against Southampton, but fingers crossed we can go into this one with some positivity and try and get a result against West Ham. But going straight into it, Jordan Pickford in goal. Need I say any more, really? I think Dyche will look to use Jordan Pickford in goal. He'll be crucial if called upon. I think we know how good he is in between the sticks and at shot stopping, but also I think his distribution will be quite key on Saturday, especially to try and break West Ham down because they'll be desperate to get 3 points. So they'll try and be defensively solid, I think, on Saturday, especially with them being at home. So I think Pickford's distribution, trying to find Dominic Calvert-Lewin in behind, I think that'll be quite key on Saturday. But moving into the back four, we'll start at left back. It's going to be Vitaly Mykolenko, in my opinion. He was poor against Southampton. I'm a big defender of Vitaly Mykolenko. I have been for quite some time. I think he is, we know what he offers. He's a solid defensive fullback. He doesn't offer anything going forward, but I think in Sean Dyche's system, I think he works quite well at defending and trying to be defensively solid. But I'll openly admit he was poor against Southampton. The goal late on for Southampton came from his side. He'd gone walkabouts, and the way he was able the Southampton winger was able to waltz in behind him and square it to Adam Armstrong was simply unacceptable. So we need to see better from Mykolenko. But I do think it doesn't help that we don't have the ample squad depth in that position for a player to be beneath him and challenging him. So he kind of is a pretty much nailed on starter each week in Sean Dyche's team. But moving to the centre halves, this has gone from the easiest position on the pitch to predict to now one of the hardest this season. If you'd have asked me, if you said that to me at the back end of last year, I wouldn't have believed you. But I do think it's time for Jarrad Branthwaite to come back in. I think the Michael Keane experiment hopefully has finished. Me and Mike from the Unholy Trinity podcast, we did a lengthy match review of the Southampton game, and we said it was absolute insanity leaving Branthwaite out once again. He's your best player, he's your best defender by a mile, and leaving a £70 million potential asset on the bench, I think is absolutely criminal from Sean Dyche. So I think he has to maybe learn from this one and put Jarrad Branthwaite straight back in. I'm hoping he does, but I do think he is going to take Michael Keane out and use a partnership of Jarrad Branthwaite and James Tarkowski as the two centre halves. I think that's our best partnership in terms of defence. They're the most comfortable playing together. I think Branthwaite definitely brings the best out of Tarkowski in that sense. So I do think it will be time for them two to come back in as a partnership. And I think it might be the first time we've seen them together this season, or certainly one of the very few times we've seen them together this season. So I do think it is time. But moving into right back to round off the back four, I think it will be Ashley Young that Dyche uses on Saturday. Dyche just seems to trust him the most, doesn't he? Listen, for me, I think Ashley Young has quietly been going about his business this season. I said this in the run up to the Southampton game. He is quietly going about his business. He's quietly doing his job as our best fullback, I think. So I think Dyche trusts him. I think Dyche won't overlook him on Saturday, and that will complete our back four. Moving into midfield, I think the first midfielder that Dyche will look to use is Orel Mangala. I think he was probably our best player against Southampton, in my opinion. I think he was a player that, looked to be positive. I think he created quite a few chances from running from deep with the ball and maybe turning over possession when a lot of other players in our team wouldn't have done that. So I think every credit to him there. As I said in the match review and the extra time review, that I did think he was probably our best player on the pitch. And alongside him, I think Dyche will look to use Idrissa Gana Gueye again. Listen, solid defensively. I think them two can form a partnership. I'm hoping they can, and maybe nail down their place in the midfield as our two centre midfielders. But I think it's going to be quite a difficult game in midfield for Everton against West Ham. Obviously, Lucas Paquetá is very creative. He's very skillful. So if we can nullify that threat early doors and use Mangala and Idrissa Gana Gueye as the two midfielders to do that, I think it will be a big thing in the context of the game. But that's what I think Dyche will go with in midfield. And then moving a little bit forward into attacking midfield in the 10 role, I think Dwight McNeil will play there once again. Obviously he wasn't fully fit for the Southampton game, was he? But Sean Dyche still threw him in, which I think, contrary to a lot of things we've seen this season, you look at Jarrad Branthwaite, for example, he's been sat on the bench for 3 or 4 games now, whereas Dwight McNeil has a knock, doesn't train until the Thursday before the Southampton game and goes straight back in. So I think it seems a little bit like he's got his favourites somewhat. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think Dwight McNeil will be used as the number 10 once again. Listen, he's got decent stats this season. He's got decent chance creation stats, so we can't rule that out, and we can't overlook that. But for me personally, I'd like to see Iliman Ndiaye in there. I think he's probably our most creative player, and having him as the focal point and at the centerpiece of that creation, I think that will probably suit us a little bit more. But no, Dyche, I think we'll opt for Dwight McNeil in there, and listen, if he can do us a job and try and create chances, I think I can't complain. But I'm just hoping that he can create his chances and he shows a little bit more than what he did against Southampton because I thought the majority of that attacking play was very poor. But moving into the attack and into the front three, we'll start off the left hand side. I think it will be Iliman and Jai. He's going to be crucial on the counter attack, in my opinion. I think obviously the pace and the power he's got in his dribbling, but also the skills he's got. I think it's going to be our biggest asset on Saturday, just to try and turn over the ball and hit West Ham on the counter attack. Obviously, I think they're going to see the majority of the ball. That's just how Sean Dyche sets up his teams, in my opinion. And going away from home, I think if we can grind out a result by not seeing a lot of the ball, I think that's positive. But you can't play like that at home. But yeah, as I said before with Iliman Ndiaye, I think he's our most skillful player. He's definitely one of our quickest players, so he's going to be crucial on Saturday playing off that left hand side. And moving to the right hand side, I was very torn here between Jack Harrison and Jesper Lindstrom. I do think Jesper Lindstrom will keep his place in the team. As I said before, I don't think many of the attack played well on Saturday against Southampton, so I think it would be harsh maybe to single out Lindstrom as the player that did the worst. So I think Lindstrom will play again. I think Dyche will look to maybe give him a little bit of a run of a game because he's a young player, but also he's coming from a league in Italy where the pace isn't as much as the Premier League. It's going to take time. Does he have a few adaptability issues potentially? So the only way that's going to be solved and be fixed is by giving him a run of games and a bit of consistency in the team. So I think Dyche will look to do that and use Jesper Lindstrom off the right hand side. And then up front, probably another contentious one. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be given the nod once again. I personally think Beto deserves a shout. Dominic Calvert-Lewin didn't really do much against Southampton, whereas Beto came on. He was a nuisance. Obviously, missed that chance from point blank range, which you can't really have two complaints against Beto for that. It was right at him. It was very difficult to get over it and head it into the net, and it just ricocheted off him and hit the crossbar. And then obviously Southampton got the end and score, but Beto came on, created that chance obviously, and then created the chance in behind where he's fractionally offside. He did put the ball in the back of net past Aaron Ramsdale, but fractionally offside. So I do think personally I'd like to see Beto, but I do think Dyche will use Dominic Calvert-Lewin in there just for consistency, and I think he trusts Dominic Calvert-Lewin a lot more in terms of defence and creating defensive solidity. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin defends from the front well by winning the ball in the air, whereas Beto's more of a player where you can lump it long and use his pace in behind and his power to latch onto balls. I think they are just different players, but I do think Dyche will use Dominic Calvert-Lewin on Saturday against West Ham. But that is all for this starting 11. I'll just run through it one more time. So it's Jordan Pickford in goal, Vitaly Mikalenko, Jared Branthwaite, James Tarkowski and Ashley Young as your back four. Orel Mangala, Idrissa Gana Gueye and Dwight McNeil as your three midfielders, with Iliman and Jai off the left-hand side, Jesper Lindstrom off the right-hand side, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin as your sole striker up front. But that is all for today. Let me know your thoughts on the starting 11. Do you think Dyche is going to go with something else? Do you think there's going to be a difference in personnel here? I'll be looking forward to see your comments, but make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.